should be fine now.
Yeah, it should be fine now.
You don't run an SDI for this one?
I'm gonna run it now. If you don't run an XSL, then from there I'm gonna see this one. One, two, one, two.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I have the following commissioners for now to take this? Hi, how are you? Commissioner Melissa, if you may come to the fore. Comrade Jacks, Commissioner Jacks, Commissioner Joan, Bate, Isa, Dogotela Adams. I was surprised that Adams was with finance. I thought he was going to be with skills, so he was playing a facilitation role there. And now that Alinda is here, we can start. All right, ladies and gentlemen, can we just give 2 minutes and request? Yeah, please. And I request those that are still outside to come and join us. We are running behind schedule with almost 21 to 30 minutes. We should have appointed whips to bring people in. Awusincede mfowethu, khona basadla ngathi. All right, please. There's still a few. Okay, we'll give them about 5 minutes. Where's Mbodi? It's not here. Oh. You can't see them. Oh, all right. There's an instruction from. There's a serious instruction. I'll instruct them on your behalf. They want to see. Yeah. Yeah, no, this will be my seat. Much clearer. So we're running away from being seen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we do not have time. I think, Alinda, can you start? Or give more minutes? I'll be guided. Can I start? All right, thank you very much. As they come in, please request them to come in peace. Commissioner Mbodi always says he wants peace. My name is Bongani June Mwale. I'm one of the commissioners of the Presidential Climate Change Commission, coming from Mpumalanga, from dusty streets of a village called Jagastad. Those that come from Hersibande will know. Staying in Badplas, transiting between Badplas and Nelspruit. I'm told, ladies and gentlemen, we have about an hour to allow the commissioners to give us feedback coming from the groups. But just before that, Dr. Olive, If I go to a dreamland, you know, when you dream of things that are out of your equation, right? And I happen to be a president. I will still appoint Valu Musa as the deputy chairperson of the commission, and we appreciate his work. If you can, Comrade Crispy, help us to transmit that message to him as well. And if it were to be him, I will still appoint you as an ED to head Secretariat. And we must say to the world and sundry that our Secretariat has done incredibly well under your leadership, Crispian. If you may just stand for those. They are a team of highly diverse people, of course, supported by our partners. They do not sleep. The amount of assets they push in emails is too huge for us to actually, as commissioners, to consume and understand. We'll have to read 2 or 3 times, and that is indicative of the work that they do. They're very neutral in their work. They pursue the element of justice, and we really do appreciate your work, Crispy, and the team. And the world must know that as Commission, we appreciate the work. And you are a commissioner in your own right. And the support that we get as well from Minister Chrissy. And I can speak on behalf of the commissioners. She's been extremely consistent in supporting us. Never attempted to carry a remote control. You know, abanye abantu bathi bangathola ipower bese bafuna ukucontrol abantu abangana power yakwa control, and that then becomes a problem. We really appreciate. But ladies and gentlemen, we have 4 commissioners that are going to give us feedback from the following breakaway groups. Electricity planning and grid extension will be Commissioner Jacks, then Commissioner Melissa for is going to give us from a feedback from electricity governance, access and poverty. Commissioner Bate, job skills and localization. Commissioner Adams, finance and jet. And I want to believe we're not reinventing the wheel, because there's been consultation that has been happening. Clap for her. Yeah, I understand that from lunch people have renewed energy. So, well, we're going to move with that speed of renewed energy without any waste of time, colleagues. All right, housekeeping issues is that, like I've indicated, that we are not reinventing the wheel. A commissioner will report. I will take, if there are any, just 2 minutes each, 2 hands from this side, 2 hands from that side. But also you are allowed, because this is a continuous consultation process, you are allowed, we are going to share with you our email address. And I became a spook ED, used a different email address, and I'm sure intelligence is not listening, because I was vetted. They want to revet me to say you didn't give us that email address, but it's my son. I've sent a comment, and it was responded to. And I did that because I wanted to check whether, from an oversight perspective, are we attending to the emails. So I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that your communication that you are pushing to us is going to be attended to. Without any waste of time, Comrade Jacques, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Program Director. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Jacques Higu. At the back, if you can just, there you are. Ladies and gentlemen, firstly, just my thanks to the group of people that were in the main plenary with regards to discussing Group 1 and the challenges and the possible solutions and proposals. Maybe there are 3 takeaways. And to summarize before I go through our presentation, is that transparency in this whole process, whether it be the JET IP, whether it be the just transition, transparency is tantamount. In other words, without that, we will not succeed. The other takeaway point is spatial planning. It's absolutely important in terms of our grid. And then there was one point of disagreement in terms of the energy mix, in terms of renewables. And there was a commitment made that a offline or a separate session will be convened with the Department of Mineral Energy and some experts to discuss the challenges that were highlighted during our session. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you are. What is the purpose of our breakaway group? The role of spatial planning, which I've already explained, the need for transparency, the energy mix, least cost measures, governance, the role of distribution, and then the emergency response priorities. Our conclusions, ladies and gentlemen, were that we're in the middle of a global climate crisis, as we all know. We're also in the middle of several energy transitions globally. We have a backlog in transmission and distribution. Electricity planning must address short-term crisis and long-term planning. Other goals must be considered. Air pollution challenge, that specifically came from the Mpumalanga area. That is a big concern. Real economic challenges. There also is a need for social inclusion. The IRP is a powerful decision-making tool, and there was lots of discussion around that. The process of updating must be transparent. This is important for procedural justice. But IRP update must be considered with the integrated energy plan as well. That needs to be revisited as the only plan that can address the issues being raised on this platform. Agreement has not been reached on the role of nuclear and gas, and I've highlighted that we will meet with the Department of Mineral Energy and some specialists in terms of rolling that out. Justice decisions is coming from different perspectives of different stakeholders, e.g. the loss of municipal revenue is an integral part of the justice discourse. Private sector participation in the electrical sector has exploded and cannot keep up with demand. We have heard that the import of PV panels, for instance, we can't keep up with demand in terms of what the private sector is requiring. Eskom's weak balance sheet was discussed as a constraint of onboarding some planned projects. South Africa has got high quantities of high-value energy resources. These must be exploited, but stress testing in the South African context is essential and critical. The PCC report must be based on sound science, and ancillary services must be explicit in conjunction with renewable energy onboarding, and modelling must be able to cater for inclusion of nascent technologies as these become viable. What is our key recommendations? Maximize use of South Africa's excellent resources, wind and solar. Revise the integrated energy plan to look at energy planning as a whole. Ensure that total transparency throughout the process. Consider all elements of electricity supply that would lead us to carbon neutrality, including nuclear. Ensure least cost measures that consider the total cost to society alongside the full suite of technologies required for system functionality, clarify the role of the private sector in large utility scale generation capacity, adjust the IRP methodology to be bottom-up, factor in municipality capacity, optimize grid management, and conduct electricity planning partially, signal value to the international community throughout the IRP, or through the IRP, and consider South Africa's role in Pan-Africa industrial policy and planning and grid integration, and build a learning culture that leverages on our expertise. But, Program Director, that's...
You are not clapping hard enough like people who have renewed energy. Can I have another round, please? All right, thank you very much. Like I indicated, sorry, Marisa, just 2 minutes, that I will take 2 hands here and 2 hands there. One, gone. One, gone. 2 minutes, 2 minutes. Do we have, I'm not sure where the system, if it's working. All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Richard Worthington with Project 90 by 2030, Civil Society. Together an integrated energy plan. My concern is that this doesn't address the fact that we seem to be held hostage by the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy using the planning processes or lack thereof as a way of holding us into the energy system that we are in and preventing us from moving forward. So I would commend that the recommendation is that we institute the undertaking of integrated energy planning under the auspices of the presidency, because otherwise we can continually be held hostage to lack of progress by a recalcitrant department that does not want to see change from the energy incumbency. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. You can switch that on off. Sir?
Hello, thank you. I'm Victor Minnick from the Life After Coal campaign. I would like to ask a process question about discussions on nuclear power. My question is whether that discussion was led by lobbyists from the nuclear lobby or whether it was led by constituents.
When we close. Thank you very much for that question. Melissa, if you make up, yes?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Use this one, I'm not sure.
I don't know this slide. I am Melissa Fourie. I'm one of the Civil Society Commissioners, and I was the facilitator of the next group, which was about, I thought there was a nice, pretty slide, but I didn't get one, governance, access, and poverty. It sounds like our group was a little bit easier than the previous group. Thanks for all the participants in that group. So the first important takeaway was about the importance of energy poverty and centering the whole, all the planning and decision-making and design of a new energy system around energy poverty and understanding that we want to give people access to energy and electricity. And that was, there was a very good argument made by our expert input, the person who made our expert input, Dr. Tracy Ledger, around electricity as an enabler of development, right? And she gave some examples of how households with regular access to affordable electricity were advantaged in what they could achieve and what they could do in terms of health, in terms of small business development, etc. So I think that's just a very, very important point to raise right up front. We also then spent some time discussing the potentially, how much, what the minimum consumption is that ordinary households should have access to, and we worked with a sort of target figure of 350 kilowatt hour per month per household. So something for us to aspire to give access to all people living in South Africa to that amount of energy. Okay, so that was the first one. The second one relates to the issue of the primary reason behind energy poverty is actually that electricity is unaffordable. So even people who are connected can't access electricity because they can't afford to buy it. So, and because we want to keep electricity prices as low as possible, that directly then leads to one of the key recommendations in the Presidential Climate Commission's report, which is about least cost generation. And least cost procurement. So actually relying on electricity that is produced in the cheapest way possible, and that gives most value for money for us as a country. We had one a representative from organized labor who asked questions about and motivated that for a more diverse energy mix, that we should still have coal and nuclear in the energy mix. And we spent some time talking about the arguments why the recommendation from the PCC is that the system should be primarily renewable, solar PV and wind plus storage. Old there are coal power plants of old. That renewable energy is now significantly cheaper than any form of coal, including new coal, old coal, but also nuclear. And of course, talking about also issues of pollution and how that is affecting people's health, pollution from coal power generation, as well as the impact on our ability to export carbon-intensive products, and how that would affect our economy and workers in South Africa. Okay, so that was the second issue, was about least cost. Then we spoke about local government. We spent quite a lot of time talking about local government. First argument or point, takeaway point about that is about how local government is, of course, reliable on the revenue from electricity, but to provide other services. And so it's not just about electricity reform in that context. It links to other services like water and waste, etc. We spoke about the capabilities of municipalities in general, the issues of distribution grids and the state of those grids, the infrastructure. We spoke about tariffs and cost recovery from those tariffs, and the issues of setting accurate tariffs. That is important. But then distinguishing that from the issue of free basic electricity, I think there was quite clear expert input that free basic electricity does not reach all the people that it's supposed to reach for a whole host of different reasons and different problems with delivery and disincentives within municipalities. And then there is the question about whether if that is presented as the solution, is that in fact addressing the real problem behind the reason for free basic electricity. Then we also spoke a little bit about the need for demonstration projects so that people can actually get a sense of how a different energy system would operate. I think we heard that consistently through the consultations that the PCC has been carrying out, that people want action, they want to see projects on the ground. It was proposed that we should specifically also think about those areas most affected, like Matla, Hendrina, Kriel, those areas where people are living in abject poverty, partly because the transition has already affected them so much there. Then we also spoke a little bit about social ownership and the need to experiment with different models so that poorer people and poorer households could also start to benefit directly from the transition. Then we also had some input about consultation. There was feedback that there's still constituencies that have not been reached, that have not been taken along in the process, and specifically at a municipal level. And I think that's something that we as a commission must review and consider and take forward and see what else we can do to address that. I think that's it. So see if I see anyone in my group who wants to add anything. Now I get a thumbs up. Okay, fantastic. Thanks
That's
so much.
She's appointing herself as my co-chair. I'm sharing this session, Commissioner Mendes, on a lighter note. There's a hand from Commissioner 1. Both of you, or you're going to give another one? All right, share notes there. The other one will speak for the other one. I'll give you 3 minutes because you are 2. Then there's one here. There's Fiso that side. Oh, Commissioner Board is back. Give him a round of applause, please. He's there. All right, those are the hands. We have not forgotten about the question asked. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to respond to that. All right.
Apologies, Commissioner Fourie, if I was not listening carefully to what you were saying. I was a bit distracted. One of the things that came out, which was really important, and everybody supported, was the fact that the free basic electricity process should be a larger measure of electricity. And there was also discussion to up to 350 kilowatt hours per parcel. And then there was the other question of an incline or other suggestion of an incline block tariff in terms of that the more you use, that you will pay. Now it seems, and I might be wrong, I'm not an expert on electricity tariffs or anything, but it seems that there are 2 blocks now. But actually it should be, those blocks should be further defined. So the more you use, the more you pay. And that free basic electricity must be, and Perry's research is very clear that that is doable as well. And Earthlife's research already from, I would say, 2 decades ago said that that was doable as well. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. That's Commissioner Bobby Pick. And I can tell you that it doesn't qualify for free basic services, unfortunately. Thank you very much, Comrade Bobby. Hi, Pela, who's the spokesperson there?
You know, it's
All right.
true. Yeah,
I'll give it to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Andy Mlambo. So my question or plea to the commission is that every year, since there's a transition, am I audible enough?
Yeah.
Since there's a transition, and then ESCOM, every year they have this yearly price determination. If there's a way for them, because we're speaking of affordability, as it is now, to move forward, to suspend those yearly price determinations until we reach a point where we can catch up and have people afford or move to renewable energy. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. You can clap for me.
You can clap for you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, best of all, close that one, close yours.
Ngangena.
Ngena baba.
Ngiyabonga. Mine is a reminder of an important point which was mentioned on the session. Is that government should explore independent study on electricity pricing. I think it's a point that was never mentioned, and I think it's important. Thank you.
Commissioner Pobis is nodding there. Bahlal, I carry you in Bahlal. Amen. There was a hand there, yes. I was surprised to feel late foot. Vola la baba, presser. There should be a button there. Yeah. Now
okay.
we're on.
Hi, I'm Jezri. I'm from the Institute for Economic Justice. And my question was this. Given that free basic electricity at the moment is inadequate both in the amount and its distribution, why is there this desperate push for cost-reflective tariffs when there are in fact a complete anomaly in developing countries, and even in developed countries are quite rare, even after decades of trying to push for them through neoliberal policy? It's not a given, it's not common policy. I get that general subsidies have caused problems. For example, distorting our industrial structure. Maybe we wouldn't have aluminium smelters if we didn't have deeply subsidized electricity. But this general push for cost reflectiveness without any adequate social safety net seems quite rash and aimed at the wrong people.
All right. Thank you. There was one hand. Clap for him. Mara Bobby is biased. On a lighter note, he's an activist. All right, okay. I'm told there's an expert that must answer your question. Sfiso?
Thanks very much, Dr. Bongani Mwale. I don't need to introduce myself anymore. I'm still that Sfiso Zacharias. Dr.
Press all right.
Short voice. Okay, people will tremble when I use that one. Dr. Luke, amongst other recommendations that we have submitted as Labour was that with great concerns, we therefore said we support a transition. However, we are worried in terms of the pace that we are moving in. That should be registered. We don't want to end up like Germany, France, and Spain in South Africa.
Do you think we're too slow?
We need to move gradually. It cannot be an overnight thing. While we say that in terms of safety nets, we support the view that we'll continue to use coal, or we believe in energy mix, whereby coal will remain the major supplier. Not that we should abandon coal. Coal is a God-given resource. And in Pumalanga, we have coal that you can still... You have coal in Pumalanga that you can, if I can share with you, Doctor. Up until Besta is released out of jail. Up until Besta is released out of jail again. And of which I want to believe that this time is going to be, I don't know how long. So now, that is some of the other things that we've said. So we remain resilient as workers, and we still say, look, people of Mpumalanga are at a cold face of this whole thing. And we appreciate the part that says a major stakeholder was seen to be left behind. But at least we have registered today to say the local government sector, municipalities, at least they are brought on board. So we would want to appeal to our stakeholder, which is SALGA in that particular sector, to say, let us run. You have your partners there. You have the other parties, organized labor being SAMU, the majority and progressive union in that sector, and the other one. So please, let us have these programs and let us move.
All right.
But bringing awareness to people at the ground level. Thank you, Doctor.
No, thank you very much. I see when you are talking there, your comrades were celebrating that we are amplifying the point that you've said to us. It's noted. Rev, I will need prayers. I will tell you who you should pray for. All right. I just want to do justice. Just justice, Rev. We don't have time. I want to give them 30 seconds. 30 seconds, and we get the response. Then you'll be the last one. 30 seconds, you're bad.
Hello, as a young person, I shouldn't be getting 30 seconds.
Oh,
okay.
We deserve it, actually.
Okay, so because it's brief, I'm going to give it over to my colleague who wants to respond to the guy on coal. The gentleman at the back on coal.
We're not responding.
Okay. It's not a direct response. Okay. No. This is on social ownership. When we speak about social ownership in local governments, what exactly do we mean? Can we elaborate on that? Because as much as a just transition should be people-focused, and we realize the constraints that local government has, what exactly do we mean by social ownership? Are we saying that we're going to support social entrepreneurship projects within communities, or are we saying that local governments, the responsibility, yet again, falls on local government, who has a conflict of interest between their revenue-generating model and reselling back to ESCOM?
All right. All right. Now, thank you very much, Val. Ayaka. Commissioner Ayaka, may you kindly stand up? May you kindly stand up, Commissioner Ayaka? All the young people, you are represented by that voice. When you're saying, I mean, a young person, that is, we are jabul. Please engage with her further. As well. Thank you very much. My brother, your 30 seconds.
Sorry, I have a collective question. This is out to the floor.
Sorry, comrades. Let's listen to you.
And to the country as a whole. What does South Africa look like in 2030 if we are not a signatory into the climate change agreement? Meaning, had we not signed, what would this country look like? And that's a question that we should ask collectively, coming from all different sides. I think at this point, the deal has been signed, so we have to find a way together to work at it to survive in this very brutal economic global climate.
Thank you very much. And from our expert there at the back, you're supposed to give us an answer.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm not going to attempt to answer that question. It's about
not the latter.
No, it's about the discussion we had in the group on cost-reflective tariffs. What we said is that we need accurate cost of supply information. We need to know what it costs to supply electricity, just as we need to know what it costs to provide an operation in a public hospital. We need to know if 40% of a municipality's cost of bulk services, for example, is technical losses. We need to know if there's inflation. We need to know if there is corruption. We need to know an accurate cost of supplying a service with the view to making that cost as efficient as possible, because the lower the cost, the more households we can afford to subsidize. But having that accurate cost of supply is not the same as saying that people must pay that tariff, but it is in the interests of everybody for us to understand what it costs to supply electricity service, particularly in a municipality, and for us to work to make that cost as efficient, to take inefficiencies out of the system. That was the discussion.
All right, now thank you very much. You'll come back, Commissioner Melissa. Who's the third one? No. Oh, sorry, I've closed the Rev. Rev, I want to see heaven. If you pray, please pray to God to say, forgive that man's sins from A to Z. I'll give you 2 minutes.
Can I make 2? Thank you so much. So my question was around peak energy. Like, why don't we have a off-peak lower price? Because then that would mean that unemployed people could maybe use the electricity during the day on the off-peak, and it would lower our peak use. And then you could also have timers that could be distributed to indigent families. And that would help to reduce our peak usage. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Kambe, which verse did you read us?
That's Genesis 2:15. God told us to look after the planet.
Thank you very much. Rev. Commissioner Joan, if you may please come. Thank you very much. Clap for that commission led by Commissioner Melissa. All right.
Thank you so much. Thanks. So our session was on localization, skills, and jobs, and Mike provided good initial context on actually the scale of localization that we're looking at. And he talked to the current high levels of localization of components within the renewable build, that if we scale up to the level of renewable implementation over the next number of years, we won't have the local capacity to keep up with that. So we really need to ensure that not only do we localize on the solar panels and wind turbines, but also significantly expand the component manufacturing of the other inputs into the renewable energy build and transmission, most importantly. The discussion was then around localization doesn't happen by accident. It actually needs to be planned. And we need a better localization plan, so driven by the demand and sustained demands, also recognition that the bid window process of the past has not been instrumental in driving successful localization because there's been too ad hoc demand for the products. So we need to have sustained demand for the localized products, and with that we need a localization plan to ensure that we can deliver the scale of components needed when those components actually need to be there. Oh, sorry, I have a slide. I didn't realize I had a slide. This was the purpose of our workshop. Technology, I see that.
Yeah, technology, let me help you.
So I have a far more efficient repertoire than I actually realized.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. You know it.
Yes. So I was working off my phone. This is much easier on my eyes. So I've mentioned the first 2 points, and it's really important for us to ensure that the manufacturers identify what needs to be locally produced. So we have, there's more engagement that is needed with the manufacturing circle to ensure that those businesses understand the scale of demand that is coming down the line. There was also a comment made in the session that, has there been adequate consultation with businesses operating in the manufacturing space to actually understand what the potential is on the JET IP to ensure that we drive localization, which will then lead to a growing economy in an improved level of jobs and meaningful jobs. For localization, there needs to be competitiveness. So there was a discussion around the ability to actually produce local goods cost competitively. And there was a question around policy instruments. Do we have policy instruments in place to ensure that we can drive that competitiveness and drive the offtake or drive the localization of components? I've touched on this, but there was actually a discussion on the need for explicit just transition plans for companies, to be very clear as companies are planning their build as to what they can actually commit to locally. We've seen within the REAP program that is a mandated localization requirement. Obviously, when private sector builds, they don't have a requirement to look at local. But we should look at how we can encourage local companies in building out either their renewables or their business to actually drive that localization. And the opportunity there, not actually discussed in the session, but it has brought to mind a discussion we've been having on hyperlocalization. So the better we understand the demand for products in a district and regional area, the more we can drive hyperlocalization of those products and components that then allows us to not only create jobs in the spatial areas, but also reduces the carbon footprint within those value chains. And I've mentioned the private companies. Then from a job creation point of view, it really is an understanding that industrialization plan, and there was a comment made that it's not just about the jobs in the rollout of the renewables and the build of the infrastructure projects. It really is about ensuring that we understand the job creation potential in those value chains and localization businesses. There were quite a few comments around the lack of inclusion of SMEs and SMMEs. That it's a talk shop, that we don't necessarily actively include SMEs in the build, and it needs to be done with intent. This can't be a transition that benefits only big companies. It has to be done in an inclusive manner and creating new industrialists and new businesses. And really looking at how to remove red tape. There was a comment made around the inability to hire people to even carry solar panels because they don't meet the electrician requirements that are required. So how can we address the red tape issues to ensure that we can create a more agile implementation environment? There was also a comment around the integration of ICT into electricity distribution, which would create far better two-way communication. Greening supply chains, quite a lot of discussion around the risk to jobs of the carbon border adjustment mechanism, and how we need to green our supply chains to both protect jobs and possibly as a differentiator and a new opportunity for export production. And a broader conversation than just renewable energy, but really talking to the network sectors, because it is in the proper planning around ports, transmission, rail, ICT, that we can deliver the infrastructure necessary to create a thriving economy, and through that define those supply chains that actually lead to localization. Oh, I'm going backwards. These arrows go in the wrong direction. From a skills perspective, and there was a comment made that we have the skills, and I think that there's strong recognition that there are well-trained and skilled people in the country. The challenge is we don't have enough of them, and we don't have equal opportunity to skills development, and that really is where we need more justice, to ensure that everybody in the country has the right to being skilled and upskilled. And there was a discussion around, I'm just trying to see if the words are here, but on creating choice. You know, it's not a case of just transitioning a coal miner out of a coal mine into whatever the job is that is defined. We need to create skills choices for individuals and allowing them to be reskilled and upskilled. We need to better define the critical skills of the future, what those skills are through the various pathways, and identify both the primary, secondary, tertiary skills development that is necessary, and ensure that our TVETs and universities properly equip our people to meet the jobs of the future. There was a couple of discussions around training programs for solar installations, and comments made that people are trained, but because they don't have the necessary accreditation, they can't necessarily get jobs. So it really is important to not only skill people, but really to create job opportunities for that, so we can ensure that the right skills land in the right jobs. And there was the last point, empowering workers. They do have the option to choose. We did talk about failure. There needs to be an opportunity to be able to fail. So in digital, they talk about fail fast and fail forward. So we need to create the capacity to try, to fail, to learn, and to improve on what we're doing. There were also some comments from individuals from the impacted communities, and it highlighted the need for greater dialogue. I think in consultation, we tend to listen to report as opposed to dialogue to learn, and it's a two-way learning. It's ensuring that we're working from a common platform, that the knowledge that we have is shared with the people in communities, and that we deeply understand what the communities need and how they are being impacted. And there was a lot of language around fear, and we need to ensure that we can remove the fear through insight, sharing, and understanding. A number of comments made around the ghost towns and unemployment risks as a result of mine closure, and that talks to the fear that needs to be addressed through ongoing dialogue and conversations. And there was a very strong view that the municipal or the local government layer needs to get more involved in the conversation. A number of constituencies were saying that they are more informed than their local government partners. So we do need to ensure that there is greater involvement by local government, and there was comment made, not just SELGA, but actually the local government councillors actively engaging in the conversation and understanding both the impact and the risk and the opportunity for their constituencies. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the group I belonged to. All right, no, thank you very much, Comrade Johan. Said it mouthful. Uphi uOtsil.
Gunini, sorry, ukukhatha say. I was trying to reprimand the group that side. Being now Yimlo.
vala, reprimand, vala, hlala phasi. I'll reprimand Nankulu. I'll be the one reprimanding. Close that one. You'll come and reprimand to me when I'm seated down, right? Yeah, sure. There's a hand. I start on the right, not because I'm biased to the right. Pelangajika, Tati Raten, Tolesongalega right. When Commissioner Bates was reporting, and you've all heard what technology said, you're making good progress. That was technology. Did I hear incorrectly? No. All right, there are no hands here. Oh, yeah, sure. Oh. Hey, Banbase Witbank. All right. I know it's from Witbank. From social media, we interact. Blessing, thank you very much. We know some of the face. I'll take two. Bokhona kule group angisho. Uthe ubuya eLeandra or Secunda. Ngikhuluma nawe lesigqoko sibofu. Yeah. All right, okay, bambe ke mchani. You are number 3. Basebenzi 4. Commissioner Mbodi. You'll be the last one, but don't cause trouble, Commissioner Mbodi. Oh, it doesn't want trouble. Yeah, all right, leadership.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Mtokozo Mtweni. I'm the Deputy Chairperson in the province of Mpumalanga of South African Youth Council. I'm staying in Witbank where we have...
So I've demoted you, apologies.
No. Yes, you said I'm a PC member. No. We have 11 power stations in Mpumalanga with over 56 mines that are operating, open and closed. What we want to say, the just transition must be just. And in the context of localization, we are asking the Presidential Climate Financial Task Team to come and revisit their finance and also the resourcing and climate finance to come back to the local people and to the municipalities so that we can be able to intertwine these things on the district development model that the President has advised more people to use, to interlink the government department and the private sector to accelerate service delivery and transformation. To the PCC, as a SAIC, we are saying that come to the district development model table, let us discuss so that these issues of localization can include service delivery and the issues of employment and enterprise supply development. For instance, Mr. Mwale, as I'm going to submarine, we are going to have 8.5 billion. And the 8.5 billion must be shared by the people who are going to be affected by the climate change or the just transition. Right? So we must skill those people so that when we transit, it can be a smooth transition so that there are no ghost towns. Like in Emalahleni, we have now 2 ghost towns because of 2 mines. One is Goedehoop that has just shuttered their own plant. They have been consulted with the community. They're not saying anything. And I know Crispy, the SG, the Secretary of the PCC, is listening carefully. All the stakeholders must come and consult so that all of us can make a smooth transition. We skill back our people through SLP and CSI projects so that when we go green, we don't leave our people behind. Right. We are from COVID-19, Mr. Mwale. We must treat this thing careful and sensitive. Our economy is very fragile. We are trying to come back. Even myself, I'm still owing Edgar's. Thank you very much.
All right. I don't want you I don't want you to put our executive director in collision with other secretary generals. He is the ED, not SG. You know, the SGs and the GS, that terrain you don't touch. We had a GS here in the morning, and they know we respect all of them. Thank you very much, Ntate Mtsweni. What's the second one? Let me take you leadership.
Oh, thanks, Nyabonga, leader. Or thanks to the colleagues, Ola, Commissioner. Oh, Chair, also we wanted to highlight, because since we come from the COP from Egypt, was it COP 27 or Sharm Sheikh? Is it the city? Yeah, so also how do we localize the understanding of COP, of these COPs and stuff? For instance, now we like to quote the Paris Agreement, but now the currency conversion can allow us to convert, to make example with Paris Agreement. Once we have our own COP, we come from COP Al-Sharm Sheikh, yeah, is from Egypt, is a city. So we like to understand also the commissioners, have they also advised the district development modelers to also integrate and to have their understatement, is it, what is going to be just there towards a just transition from Sharm Sheikh, or is just do it transition, or is the trust, how do we build trust around this model of the Climate Commission? Thank you very much, Chair.
No, thank you. That was progressive. You know, there's the cameramen or cameraman. When you watch soccer, you know their attitude. Abathathe wonke lo muntu. Asobek ba Greenstein bathathe laba abahleli kahle lapha ma Greenstein. And that's the problem. Cameramen, all of them wants to be in our archives. If you may take kindly your pictures, don't be selective to a group seated next to Commissioner Mbodi there. Well, I'm here and I'm observant. No, Zacharias, Bega Sandra pass. I've noted the leadership. Okay, let me give Commissioner Mbodi. No, Nena Kokasanda. All right, while I'm giving to this leader, Nena Kokasan, we are going to speak for him as well. I'm not suppressing you, my leader. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair. My question is, having went through the type of technologies that we are proposing, I think we must not miss an opportunity to include technologies. We need to be technology agnostic, but obviously look at us and our climate goals. My question is, why is certain technologies which are proven to be clean these days not part of the technologies which have been included? And I'm specifically asking about technologies such as waste to energy, where you use municipal waste to generate electricity. I'm specifically also asking about wastewater treatment, that we can use wastewater to generate electricity. What's the reasoning behind leaving such technologies and only focusing on those catalog of technologies? Because when we talk about an energy mix, we need to look at technologies that can be able to kill 2 or 3 birds with one stone. Look at municipal waste. We've got a very big issue, because when you talk about carbon emissions, landfill sites are emitting a lot of methane gases, which is also harmful to the communities around them. Why are we not also thinking around that, whereby we are able to come up with strategies that can be able to, because we must not only look at the energy generation part, which is emitting. We also need to look at the lifestyle type of activities, such as landfill sites. And these landfill sites, mind you, are in townships whereby the concentration of a majority of people are there. Why are we not using technologies to reduce these emissions and only focusing on certain technologies that found favor within certain lobby groups?
I'm tempted to say ED. I'm tempted to say ED. Please answer while you are seated there. But I don't want to do that, Alinda, because transport must still fetch me. I don't want it to say cancel anything that relates to Mwal. You'll walk to Mpumalanga. On a lighter note. Leadership, I don't have much time. I'll give you exactly 2 minutes. And add a second because you are a lady. Prayer Salab.
Thanks, Chair. My name is Mabu Mulele from Kosatu. Mine, Chair, is not a question. I wanted to add on a point that was left out. What we raised there, which is very, in fact, the whole House shared the same view, to say that if ever the people that we start from the ground, if ever you want to approach the top to bottom, then it means that there's nothing just about that. So we have to go back now and making sure that there's no one that we are leaving out, starting from the community people that are in the rural areas and all that are taken through, they understand the just transition and all the crisis, the climate change crisis. Secondly, the point was that we also discussed was to say that government and the private sector need to invest in the skills development, because now the fear that we are having as the working class is that we are faced with something new that you don't even understand. That is why in most cases we find that when people are coming in our workplaces, they want to talk this English of the just transition. We don't want to listen to them because the fear is that we are going to lose our jobs. But then if now you are approaching the working class with all these discussions and even solutions to say, if now, for example, when we are doing away with coal, which we don't support, by the way, we are going to need these skills and all that, then we'll definitely be able to listen. But if now it's just this type of sittings, the community is left out, the poor of the poorest is left out, then that is when we'll have the dilemma. And again, Chair, the point that he wants to say, he was not in our commission, so I would like to request that you give him 2 seconds. Thank you.
I wanna consult us more. Shangama Young Workers Forums. Comrades Fiso, with all due respect, wait. We will give you an email address. Because if I'm going to be to open, everyone wants to say something. And allow me, comrades, to suppress you. Babambodi, 30 seconds.
30 seconds, okay. I think we just need to amplify just one or 2 points. One is that localization need not be something that we expect to happen miraculously. We have got to have policy formulation supporting implementation in a way in which workers and those that want to get into the shop floor will not be affected detrimentally. So that involves government and other policymakers that they need to think carefully about an incident of things that happens because we didn't plan for them.
Sure.
The second thing is to make sure that we do not become rhetorical with jobs. We need to be very, very clear of which jobs we are losing and which jobs we are creating at which quality. The quality is determined by the definition of ILO, and I think I talk on behalf of many labor organizations here to say decency is key. Anything that will perpetuate casualization, which will perpetuate if this is a transition that is driven by us for ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. By the way, he's a commissioner, ne? He is a commissioner. No, it's fine. I'm saying he's a commissioner and he advanced the views from workers without any fear of favor. He reminds me of the late Steve Schroeder, may his soul rest in peace. He appeared on TV and said, we are going to crush criminals like a bulldog, crushing a bone. So that one is a crusher, always crush on me, not on me. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm closing on number 3. I'm going to call on Tate Adams. You are lucky, you are the last one. All right, thank you very much. Give them a round of applause, please. I'm not sure if you...
No, I don't need a presentation. Okay. Thanks for that. And I think it was a bit dangerous to ask a water person to facilitate a finance session, but it was a good learning experience for myself as well. But I think part of the discussions that we had was around the mechanisms, the ability, capability around some of these financing mechanisms and the way that we need to do it. And let me put it up front. There's still a lot of misconception. There's a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lot of, I guess the bluntest way, there's a divergence of opinion. There are at least two camps. And I think that requires us to spend a bit more time engaging this issue in more detail, because that's what true consultation means. But at some point, and I think Deepak made a statement, and I'm going to quote you, at some point the line in the sand need to be drawn. But be it as it may, I think one of the issues that came up early in the discussion was around project preparation finance, not just for the big players, but also for small and medium enterprises, small companies that wants to get into this game. Because there is a perception that it is set up only for the big players that can stomach the risk, that can put up the 20 million pre-project finance up front. And I think it's maybe something that needs to be dealt with. The issue around the longer range planning, and of course, the issue around the bankability of these projects. As someone mentioned, 20 years. But what are the mechanisms and what models can we use to, don't look at the slides, it's just the notes, or maybe just take it out, it's just going to confuse people. Around creating shorter time frames, shorter bankability, so it cannot be 20 years. How do you get into a space where you can make it 2 or 3 years? So I think those are some of the issues. One of the issues that certainly intrigued me is that the notion that everything seems to be collaborated, consulted, but very little integrated. And I don't know if people are picking up on this as well, because the integration is key for if we want to make this transformational change. We've heard from National Treasury that indicated that they have several activities ongoing, several review. I think one of the words used was stress testing, some of these things. So there are activities at that level. But once we start asking the question, for example, at what's happening at the local government level, and it became clear that the capacity and capability at that level requires intervention. And I guess it's not something that we did not know, but for this type of activity, it's going to be much more engaged. It's going to be, I hear the issue around the energy mix. And the other thing is that the JET IP, and I'm borrowing again from someone said it, it's not an implementation plan, it's an investment plan. And some of these things that's in there does not replace what's happening. So, for example, the gentleman spoke around the wastewater and all the other things. You would be happy to know that the Department of Water and Sanitation put out an expression of interest the other day to run some of their schemes on renewables. But it's not in the plan. So there are things happen. So again, it's that how do we harness that ecosystem? How do we start integrating? The other issue that came up was around, but I did not know about this. And I also heard about stuff happening in the Eastern Cape that I did not know was happening. So there's no central database that says, but this is funded, these are the models that's been used, this is working, etc. Because that is, the action is happening. And we heard this morning that there's action. So we can learn, okay, but how was this financed? What was the mechanism, etc.? So one of the divergent points that I think is that is there is there's a view that everything should be funded out of the fiscus, whereas there's also a predominant view that says, no, we need to mix up the funding. But with that, I think there was an argument for the risks with loans. It's there, but Are you not going to take them? What are you going to? Are you going to wait until you can afford it, etc.? So, but of course, with that comes what are the de-risking opportunities? What are the different models that one can use? And as I said in my closing, human nature is about picking a side. We are binary beings. We are not. We need to be a bit more fuzzy and say, okay, but I understand what you are saying, etc. But can we not meet in this fuzzy space? Because I think in there lies the solution. Divergence is good. It creates the tension for the discussions and to find the proper solution, etc. But we will need to. There were issues around, I guess, certain sections of society being against privatization, and we need to listen to some of these issues. I've mentioned the involvement of smaller companies, and what are those finance mechanisms that's there? We know they are there, but within this plan, is it clear enough? Can people see themselves? Potential blockages identified is that public finance, does it need to be reformed? The issue of corruption and the trust deficit came up in our session as well, and I think that needs to be things that needs to be looked at. The other one is around, and I guess it also came out in the PCC. Where is this green hydrogen coming from, and where is it going towards? And I think that this is some issues that needs to be. There was an issue around commercial and development banks need to take more risks, and for a lot of these things, we need to start acting now. We need to start. And I think the phrase that we need to start learn, make that mistakes now, fail fast, fail forward. Because if we want to satisfy all opinions and all views, we're going to stand. This train is moving, not just in terms of the climate issues, but do you want to start jumping on the train when it's at speed, or do you want to get on it while it's still moving at a thing? The other recommendation was around a lot of the focus seemed to be around the supply side and very little on the demand side. So what do you need to stimulate on the demand side? Smarter technologies that's more efficient, etc. We've heard from the gentleman already at a very localized scale. There's some things that one can do. So I think some of the key takeaways. It needs more discussion. It needs a communication process. And the best way I can think of it, and again borrowing from the water, is maybe a finance primer. How does these things work? What are the risks? Are there risks, real or perceived? Maybe a myth-busting section or something like that. So that will help us steer us in a common direction where we can start unpacking how it should be financed, what should be financed, and then maybe create some sort of atlas or database around the different mechanisms, because I don't think there's going to be one for everything. It will be different, and maybe also what are those learnings from those, what were the failures, what was the success, and we build from there. We constantly build this pyramid towards the top rather than trying to spread the base out continuously. So with that, Chair, I conclude.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Comrade Adams. That was mouthful, and the danger of giving bureaucrats to report is that they encroach with impunity. You say, come and speak about money and talk about water. Yeah, but thank you very much. One. Nothing. One hand. 2, 3. 2 minutes each, colleagues. I'm late, actually. All right.
Thank you very much. There are some issues that I think that input from the Commissioner left out. There were issues around the currency risk that I think a colleague from COSATU raised. And the kind of like debt sustainability issues when you have an investment plan that is predominantly debt denominated. where the currency is not domestic, but it's foreign. So that was another issue that was raised. The use of de-risking and PPPs. Why are we mobilizing public financing when we are saying that we don't have enough fiscal space to de-risk the private sector, right? And what are we doing to de-risk society at large, like as in communities that are affected, right? There were issues around process, like how are we going to be playing a part in this JIP process going forward, given the fact that there was a lack of transparency to get us to where we are. There was an issue, and I think there are other colleagues from that who can add to the other issues that were there. One more issue that I would like to raise that was not raised in that is the concern around bilateral investment treaties. We have done very well to reduce, this is the legal risks, right? We've done very well to reduce our exposure to bilateral investment treaties. However, this actually exposes us to the possibility of such, right? And there are serious legal implications to that, especially when things change. When there was a sovereign debt crisis in Europe, what happened there is that a lot of those countries had to restructure the debt and remove a lot of subsidies that were awarded to renewable industries. So they removed the feed-in tariffs and the like. 80 companies have gone against the countries of Spain, have gone against the countries of Italy for that kind of restructuring, because a lot of the arbitration is not taking place in their local countries, but they take place in international courts, like in international systems. So in what way, and because the conditionalities to these loans are not known by anyone publicly, what exactly are we signing up to? So when we talk about a transparent process, it needs to happen to the letter, to the deal. And bilaterals tend to be not the kind of deals that allow for that transparency. Thank you.
Manje, we are trying to be smart. You invite trouble for me. Did I note you? No, I didn't. I will give you an email address. Second one, I think my Keda, you were the last one. There was a second hand in the middle. Sorry, my brother, for suppressing you. Apologies. Yeah, the second one, you'll be the last one. I'm not looking this side, ne?
I'm a campaigner working in philanthropy. I think I'd like to pick up from the last speaker here, being someone who was not in the commission. The first thing is really a contextual one. We are spending about 20% of annual public spend servicing debt, not addressing capital, right? And then this is really a question around debt for climate financing. We are in a context where we are in an aggressive fiscal consolidation program in the middle of a recession, a global recession that no one wants to declare, in the middle of an already declared debt crisis globally, right? Now the question here is, how should we figure the additional debt, and particularly sovereign debt backing private projects, right? How should we figure this in society? How should we make sense of it? How should we then also be able to kind of bring people on board into this? And this leads me to a further question really around sense-making around these issues, the instruments. They're so far from ordinary people's experiences and understandings. As we are already experiencing, there is a substantial cut in public spend on social programs, and especially the social wage, right? We've been spending the better part of the last decade campaigning for a universal basic income grant, which itself is stated as perhaps an essential feature of the justness of the transition that is coming. And this is really not on the table as far as public policy is concerned, or fiscal policy is concerned, in terms of bringing this into a reality. And so the question for me is, or at least the secondary question for me then becomes, how do we bring more people into this conversation? What needs to be understood by society in order for us, more broadly than those of us who are here in this room, to be able to participate and shape directly the kind of program that the state then should advance in terms of financing the transition that we want and deserve, and not necessarily the one that we currently have. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. My brother?
Thank you very much. I just wanted to add, I was part of the commission. So a number of points have been left out, and thanks to Comrade Basani for adding some. The other point which was left out was that from our side, in particular as Labour, we are against privatization, and we think that the funding models which are proposed are actually in sync with the drive towards the privatization of energy provision in the country. And in this instance, of course, they are being done in a way that would displace ESCOM to be the main role player in as far as energy generation, energy transmission and distribution is concerned. So this is the first point. The second point is that we also pointed out that in the JET-IP, they are referring to the central bank, the powers it has, insofar as it deploys the monetary policy tools of interest rates in particular to fight price volatility. But what they were neglecting out of that is the powers of the central bank to be able to spend through issuance. And this we have seen through the COVID-19 credit facility, which was created to prop up businesses. This method could be used to be able to ensure that enough money is available publicly to ensure that ESCOM drives and champions this process instead of pushing policies which are actually just furthering further the unbundling of ESCOM in terms of energy generation division and distribution division. Thank you very much.
All right, no, thank you.
Hands here. Chair, there's been hands on the side.
Chair. What's the chair? Oh, all right.
Side.
Wait, Iman, Iman, I see young people have interest in this. I'm noting you. I'll give you 2 minutes, and I'll give you 2 minutes. I'll give you 2 minutes. All right, you can start, my sister.
All right. So we were also in that finance session, and I think at the end of that discussion, there was a question raised about why is civil society concerned about green hydrogen? And I really want to be clear about this. Our concerns are about the fact that the JET-IP prioritizes and allocates 313 billion rand to the development of the green hydrogen sector over 2023 to 2027, with 150 billion indicated for port project development and infrastructure capital. Our concern is about the inclusion of the green hydrogen sector in our JET-IP as opposed to being dealt with perhaps under the green hydrogen commercialization strategy, potentially financed by the private sector under that specific plan. If we include the green hydrogen sector under the JET-IP, we take away attention from key issues that everyone has been talking about, like increasing allocations to socially owned renewable energy, mine rehabilitation, etc. I also want to raise a second question that relates to whether or not we have fully considered that under the current JET-IP, based on ESCOM's decommissioning schedule, Medupi and Kusile would run to 2050, with massive air pollution implications. And we'd really like to know, has there been a full consideration of the finance that would be required to introduce pollution abatement technology at Medupi and Kusile, as well as to deal with the health implications from air pollution? So those are my two questions.
All
Thanks.
right, no, thank you very much. I'm being somewhere there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks. I was also in that group. So just an input on process. So firstly, a very practical question, and in the interest of transparency, what is the future of the Presidential Climate Finance Task Team? Who's the next head of that task team? When will they be appointed? Secondly, on the revision of the JETP investment plan, we don't have any timelines on this. We don't have a timeline on an implementation plan. And we need to know to what extent this plan can be revised. For example, is there an opportunity to revise the 3 priority areas and talk more seriously and make greater investments, towards justice outcomes and social protection and everything else people have been saying? And then finally, we obviously want consultation to continue into the implementation process. And we know that the investment plan provides for an establishment of a JETP unit for tracking, monitoring, and evaluation. Our suggestion on that is that there needs to be inclusive and real representation in that unit, so that civil society as well as other stakeholders can play a real oversight role and make sure that there's accountability with this plan, given the issues we've spoken about around corruption and differentiated investments in sectors that haven't been consulted on.
Noted. Thank you, my sister. Be efficient as well. Back to some Ghana.
Nyabonga Itsuba. Only 3 things I'm concerned about. Firstly, I think 100 years back, 1923, ESCOM started this thing of energy. Only 3 things they were concerned about: how to improve the country economically, to employ people, and then bring energy to the rest of the country. That was 100 years back. So now what I'm concerned about is that have this system of PCC already check in the near future the impact, the negative impact of this just energy transaction? Because I'm pretty sure back in the days when ESCOM was founded, they were never concerned about the global